So the first time we talked about Naruto, now we are talking about Luffy soloing your favorite anime verse. Now before I get into this, you guys already know that when I'm talking about soloing anime verses, I like to go off of the Madara versus Shinobi Alliance style. Can you destroy everybody all at once? We are not running the gauntlet here, and I will be using Luffy's manga form. If you don't know that form, back out of the video right now. We are going to be using Luffy in Gear 5, Sun God Nika Luffy. Let's just get right into it. So we have our chart here. Cry if Luffy solos your verse by CurseYuta_ on Twitter. Show them some love. First up, Naruto. Smiling, he's chilling, he's having a good time. Is this the right choice? Clearly we already know Luffy is not soloing the Naruto verse, okay? There's obviously going to be a bunch of characters in the Naruto verse that can box with Luffy, even if he's in Gear 5 form, because again, I'm looking at it like Madara versus Shinobi Alliance. If Gear 5 Luffy is pulling up and attacking all the Shinobi all at once, there's going to be trouble coming Luffy's way, because when I'm looking at Gear 5 Luffy, he's going to need time to rest at some point. But again, we also know there's gonna be some characters that are getting packed up, especially a lot of the Konoha 11 that have dropped off. We do know that the way the Naruto verse is looking right now, it is very, very top heavy. You're looking at your Narutos, your Sasukes, and obviously your Tentails, Obito, and Madaras, and Kageyas, and all of these people top tier all around. But once you start getting out of the top 10, top 15 of Naruto, you really start to fall from grace. I mean, you're looking at Kiba and Tenten and all of these people in the Konoha 11 who were top tier back in the day, definitely are not keeping up with Gear 5 Luffy right now. If there's a Konoha 11 gauntlet, I'm telling you right now, Luffy is packing up around 75% of the Konoha 11. He is just that lethal. And one of the biggest things that the Naruto verse is going to have to look out for when taking down Luffy is the fact that his Devil Fruit Awakening is able to change the environment as well as change their own body. We've seen Luffy literally jump roping with Kaido. This means that if he is able to grab a Susanoo, he's able to grab a Kurama Cloak, he can literally change their body. Even if Madara is in 10 tails, he's still gonna have a difficult time trying to figure out how to navigate Luffy. But when I'm thinking about the Naruto verse going up against Luffy, I'm thinking about the True Seeker Orbs and I'm thinking about the Kamui. I think those two things are definitely going to stand out against Luffy, and obviously he's not going to end up clearing the verse. Next up, we have Natsu. He is smiling, he's chilling, he doesn't look like he's worried at all that Luffy has pulled up. I agree, but I do think it depends on how you factor in Haki versus Magic, because if we're going to treat Haki as an ability that can stop Devil Fruits as well as Magic, if we're able to make that happen, I do think that Gear 5 Luffy is going to be knocking out a lot more people than usual in the Fairy Tail verse. But again, there's obviously characters in the Fairy Tail verse that have access to Fairy Law. You can even look at Natsu that was boxing against Altair, who had multi-dimensional attacks. We already know that Natsu is one of the greatest Dragon Slayers in the verse, has insane fire magic, can eat fire and all of these things. Luffy has also boosted up his speed. Let's not sleep. Luffy was able to grab lightning in his battle against Kaido. But again, you have Laxus, who's obviously a lightning user. You have Gildarts that can go crazy. You have Urza, who actually is probably the most versatile character in the Fairy Tail verse. Has an armor for almost everything. Was boxing with Irene, and we know Irene goes crazy as well. And mind you, we're not even talking about Fairy Heart Zareth yet or Acnologia. So clearly the Fairy Tail verse is going to be okay. Next up, we're looking at the Bleach verse. We are looking at Ichigo. He's smiling. He's not worried. This pick is actually correct. The Bleach verse scales much higher than the One Piece verse, but there are some opponents that would have to watch out for Gear 5 Luffy. If we're going to use the gimmick of the fact that they are Shinigami so Luffy wouldn't be able to see them, I mean, if you want to go that route, then I guess in theory Luffy would have no shot. But if we remove that cheese element from the versus battle, I do think that Luffy can still keep up with a lot of the people in the Soul Society. Luffy, again, in Gear 5, as I've been saying before, can change the environment around him as well as the opponent's body. That's going to be very, very tough, because as we have seen in the past, there are certain characters that were struggling with Aizen's manipulation, obviously with his Zanpakuto, and I do think that Luffy has an ability that will be able to not really manipulate the mind, but he can manipulate their bodies, he can manipulate the physical, and that still will cause a big issue for certain characters. But again, because I'm looking at it in the way of a Madara versus the Shinobi Alliance, that means Luffy is just dropped into the Bleach verse and he's going to be attacking everybody. There's no way he's making it out. Just the mere combined spiritual pressure of a Yamamoto and an Ichigo would be problematic for Luffy in that form. But could Luffy's Conqueror's Haki counteract spiritual pressure? If that does work, that does mean that there are some characters that would still have to look out for Luffy. Next up, you see here Midoriya. He's crying, obviously representing the My Hero verse. I agree with this. The My Hero verse stands absolutely no chance against Gear 5 Luffy. I know there are certain characters in the My Hero verse that have some interesting quirks. I believe that if you're looking at Eri, who has the ability to rewind time, you also have Lemillion, aka Mirio Togata, that can phase through objects and things. Those characters out there that have interesting quirks would be tough for Luffy if he's not ready for it. But I think that because Luffy has access to future sight observation haki, he would be able to use precognition for those characters' attacks. And I don't think there's any character in My Hero that has the durability of Luffy. He has Conqueror's haki infusion, so the haki is going to be going into their bodies, destroying everything. Deku does not have the ability to really hold 100% full counting like that as much as we know, so I still believe Luffy can get the job done. Fighting everybody all at once would be tough, but we've seen Luffy box against armies before by himself, like Big Mom's army in Whole Cake arc. It's not going to be easy for him, but he's winning. Asta from the Black Clover verse, he's smiling, he's not worried. Is that right? Similar to Fairy Tail, I believe that we have to discuss haki versus magic, but for the most part, Luffy is definitely going to be losing here because I believe that the Black Cloververse has a lot of arcane and anti-magic users that would definitely make it tougher for Luffy to fight against. Luffy fighting against opponents like the Dark Triad or even Asta that have access to demon magic, and then him having to keep his own energy up while going through this entire battle, it would be nearly impossible. And I didn't even discuss Dorothy's dream world. How is Luffy getting out of Dorothy's dream world? Again, that's going to be similar to a Kamui type situation in Naruto. You have Vanessa, who has the ability to change fate, but there are a lot of characters that would definitely get packed up. A lot of the Black Bulls, believe it or not, are getting packed up by Gear 5 Luffy because he can manipulate them, he can manipulate their attacks, their bodies. Luffy in that form is really defying the law of physics as we know it. We've literally seen Luffy running on air. Luffy's going to be using techniques and using things that are very unconventional. Everybody's not going to be prepared to box against Luffy. So because of that, I do think a lot of the Clover Kingdom lower tier characters are going to be getting packed up by Luffy, but as he starts to move up to the arcane mages and the captains and all these things, it's going to get even tougher. And we didn't even talk about the Spade Kingdom or the Heart Kingdom or anything like that. I do think he would lose. Luffy against the One Punch Man verse. I still stand on the fact that I believe the One Punch Man verse is very, very top heavy. Is Luffy soloing the verse? No. When you're looking at characters like Saitama and those close to Saitama in power, they are obviously going to be able to defeat Luffy. But Luffy's Gear 5 form does make it a little shaky for the rest of them because he can change the environment. We've literally seen Luffy use the ground to ricochet Kaido's attack back to him. What makes you think that Luffy cannot pull off that same feat in the One Punch Man verse or any of these other verses? Even if you're bringing up Bang, I still think Luffy can beat Bang. I need my Saitamas, your Cosmic Fiogaros, and people like that. Because again, this is not strictly power. We are talking about hacks. We are talking about their abilities going up against each other. Next up, you see Tanjiro crying, and yes, this is the correct emotion. Not really much to say here other than the fact that if Luffy stopped into the Demon Slayer verse, I mean, mere Conqueror's haki would just make a lot of the people pass out. I mean, it is what it is. A lot of these characters cannot keep up with Luffy currently in their state. I know it has been stated that Luffy's Devil Fruit is pretty much working at a disadvantage in sword fights, as we've seen when Luffy was moving in the Marineford War, running away from Mihawk. But these Demon Slayer swordsmen are not Mihawk to me. They're not moving like Mihawk, so there's really nothing for Luffy to really worry about. And a lot of the top tier demons can only box in the night anyway. Next up, we have the Fire Force verse. We see Shinra there. Now, I'll be the first one to say that I do not know all the feats on the Fire Force manga, but I have heard that Shinra's power level is way up there now. I've heard that Shinra should be in the conversation with people like Goku and people of that nature. Is that true? I cannot tell you for sure, but I will say, even if we do not take manga Shinra's form, I do believe that the Fire Force verse is still going to be problematic for Luffy because Shinra can rewind time. There's so many different fire type users that it would just be too powerful, too much going on for Luffy to really keep up with. Yes, Luffy does have future sight observation haki, but even if he's able to see in the future, would he be able to react to Shinra, who can move faster than the speed of light? I have not seen Luffy pull that off really, and I believe the Fire Force verse out of a lot of the charts here are really great at teamwork. So I do believe that if Luffy is able to separate the second generation power kinetics from other people, I think those situations would definitely be advantageous for Luffy. But Luffy's not really going to know anyway if he's in the Fire Force verse, so him being there, he's still going to take the L. And last but not least, you see Gon here. He's representing the Hunter x Hunter verse. He is crying. Is that the right thing? I'm gonna say no. And the only reason why I am saying no is because there are some characters that have cheese nen abilities in Hunter. Nanika, Aluka, As we know, Nanika has the ability to grant wishes, but Nanika can also destroy everything. Nanika can destroy your family members, people that you know. Nanika is just super cheese. But there's also some characters from maybe the Dark Continent, some characters in the manga of Hunter x Hunter that have some strange abilities that will be able to take down Luffy as well. I do think that Luffy is stronger than the Hunter x Hunter verse, but there are some hacks, there are some weird abilities out there in Hunter that will be able to stop Luffy. Now you guys let me know down in the comment section below, which verse do you agree with or disagree with? I think this chart is pretty accurate. The only conversation that I think should be had is with the Hunter x Hunter verse. But other than that, you guys let me know down in the comment section below which verse you agree with. And with that, I'll see you next time. Peace.